and welcome to the Mindwell Suite, where we share selected curation of materials around mental, emotional, and physical well-being. I'm your host, Fran Bishop, the founder of the Mindwell Suite and also CEO and president of Aerobodies, Inc. So in today's conversation, we're going to be talking about something that a lot of people have on their minds, which is this new state of normal, the heightened anxiety or even sadness that many people are feeling around COVID-19. And I was thinking as I was preparing for this morning, how are we going to be talking about COVID 10 years from now in terms of what we dealt with, what it felt like, what the energy was? And I thought, even more importantly, how will we be able to talk about how we demonstrated that we were able to thrive during COVID-19? So that's just one of a couple of topics that we're going to be addressing in today's conversation. So with that, I'd like to introduce our guest, Kayla White. And Kayla has quite a bit to share with us today as a mental health expert and therapist. So let me tell you a little bit about her. Kayla has a graduate degree from University of Virginia. She completed her BS degree in psychology and also sociology. She also has her master's in clinical and mental health counseling. Kayla currently works with several individuals in several different industries and lines of work and works with them around anxiety, depression, and substance abuse and disorders. So Kayla currently works with Healthy Minds Therapy in Old Town, Alexandria, Virginia. So welcome, Kayla.
Thank you. Nice to meet all of you virtually.
So we have quite a bit to talk about today, and I was really looking forward to this conversation. So I'm just going to kick off with the question around, because COVID has become such an avid part of our lives, you can't go to the grocery store or the dry cleaner, you can't turn on the news without it being in your face at all times. I think that everyone is dealing with a bit of worry and anxiety. And as we talk about that, what really is the difference between worry and anxiety?
Yeah, that's a question that I work a lot with my clients in private practice on is how do I differentiate what is a normative feeling of should I be worried about this versus anxiety and something that is really impacting me and could be changing your perception of yourself. There are a few key differentiators that you should keep in mind when thinking about worry and anxiety, because right now, feeling worried about what's going on is normative and would be considered in a healthy range to be worried about this. It's a new situation that nobody could have really prepared for. One of the key differences is worry tends to be in our heads, whereas anxiety is more so experienced in your body. So somatic sensations, when your heart beats fast, or maybe it gets slower, if you have problems sleeping, if your diet changes, if you have poor memory, difficulty concentrating, those are all symptoms of anxiety that maybe should be explored a little bit further with a professional if it gets to the point where it starts impacting your work. Or one big thing that I've been noticing, anxiety is impacting people's relationships, whether that's with their spouse or their roommates or their family. So one of the main differentiators between is this worry or is this anxiety is how does it present in your body? If it's just in your head and you feel a little bit stressed out about what's going on, I think everybody is feeling a little bit of that right now. But if it starts to present itself and you maybe have more of an appetite or less of an appetite, you're gaining or losing weight, losing sleep, maybe sleeping more. Those are all issues of more anxiety induced behavior. So keep in mind that mind versus body. Worry is more in the mind. Anxiety, you feel more in your body.
Because it's showing that there's a physiological manifestation of it. It's not just it's something intangible.
Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit to when it starts to get a little bit more heightened? Like how can we tell that we've kind of gone past I guess lane one, if you will, and you're kind of escalating the issue around anxiety for yourself.
Yeah. So one of the other key differentiators is anxiety is more about a general issue and worry is more a specific problem. I'm worried about an example that I have used before. I'm worried about getting, say, to the airport on time. Worry is more problem and solution focused. Anxiety is maybe you don't have a solution for how to deal with the issue at hand. So if you start noticing, I can't come up with a solution, that's typically when you're getting to that other lane. When you're trying things and it's just not working. When you're trying to go to bed earlier and you just still can't fall asleep and you're still waking up in the middle of the night or earlier than you anticipate. When you don't have an appetite. When maybe you're eating more. Like, when it gets to a point where you've tried solutions and maybe it's just not working, then it's probably to the point where you should be evaluated by a mental health professional to see what else can be done.
Those are really helpful tips, because I think that a lot of people are, and what's really interesting is that people are seeing that, in their family members, right? And like it's sometimes it's hard to diagnose that in ourselves, but it's real easy to see it, in our partner or in our spouse or in our kids, which kind of leads to our next point is around, what I'm seeing a lot with clients that we work with is that because now everybody is at home, and there's a new virtual reality for everybody that everyone's dealing with. The kids are at home, the teachers are at home, the parents are at home, and we're all trying to work. It's really funny. Every day around 12:30, I look out the back of my house where I go for my lunch, and then I go back around the island to the office, right? But I see the same folks come out, and they bring their kids out in the afternoon. And I asked one of my neighbors one day, I said, how's it going? And she's like, it's not going at all. It's dramatic because our kids don't understand I have to work and yet they want to play. So how do you deal with that tension that may start to mount up in the family or among family members?
Yeah, one key thing to deal with this new forced isolation between family or roommates, or even isolation with yourself, people who live alone. I live alone. I've had to really get used to, like, how do I cope with just being alone? And first is taking time a day to spend time with yourself. If you live alone, go for a walk. Put your mask on, do what you need to do. It's so important to create some type of normalcy in this situation. If you've been eating, and if your, bedroom has been your dining room and your sleep space and your workspace, finding a new space in your home, getting to a new area of your home. Couples who are in the same house, try not to do work in the same rooms with one another. Create this dynamic as if you were at work, if you can. And create the normalcy of, okay, we'll reconvene at mealtime at the end of the day. That's something that I've been suggesting to my clients who they both have to work at home. What do you do? And then just taking that time to be alone. Another thing that I've been really, really advocating for, and I always do, not just during this pandemic, is getting people used to sitting and being comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. This is an uncomfortable time. When we have feelings of loneliness and sadness and frustration and being overwhelmed, we try to avoid those feelings, right? We try to do whatever we can, however we cope. We distract ourselves. We feel guilty for feeling those feelings. Sit with them. The best way to deal with things is to sit through them. What happens when we start to avoid how we're feeling is fear. What we avoid creates fear. So I use this feelings wheel. I think we'll get that pulled up. And you'll be able to see, like, how we're used to showing happy, sad, mad, maybe angry, right? Those are 4 feelings that as people, we feel pretty comfortable showing those emotions and how they feel. What does frustrated and lonely and irritable and all of these other feelings that we have, skeptical, withdrawn, alienated, insignificant, what do those feelings look like and what do they feel like? And getting comfortable with saying, I feel say overwhelmed and frightened right now. There's nothing wrong with saying that. And a study that I love, actually, thank you for pulling that up, Fran.
Sure.
One study that I really love, they had participants, they did physiological testing and used an EEG, and they had people who were showing and feeling symptoms of anxiety. And they had two sets of people. One group just wrote, okay, how do you feel in one word? That's what they did. They wrote it down. That was like their part of the study. The next group, they said, put your feelings into as many words as you can. That group of people showed physiologically that their anxiety symptoms and what they self-reported started to reduce, because our words can take power back. We're taking control of how we feel. If we say, I feel anxious, that can overcome us. But if we say, I feel anxious and terrified and afraid, but I accept that and I'm going to try to work through it, that is going to create a whole new mindset, and it really does start to diminish those physiological symptoms that you might be feeling. Accept it.
Let me ask you just one quick question, because I think you're hitting on something that's really powerful here. So if you're talking about a mindset shift, right? So
Yeah.
I love this power wheel. I think this is absolutely brilliant, because so often I remember taking an improv class many years ago when I just started in coaching, right? And when the instructor or the facilitator asked people to start to manifest different, emotions, it was so interesting how people stayed in certain emotions the whole time. Their facial expressions never changed, their body never changed, because there's a dominant mental energy that a lot of us stay in all the time. So to your point, if you recognize, once you start to recognize, okay, I'm feeling angry, or I'm feeling disgusted. Oh, and side note, I did use this on my husband the other night, and it was great. It was fabulous, because he was like, "What do you mean I have to shift?" And I was like, "Let me show you the mind wheel. Let me show it to you." So he got it after he saw it.
Yeah.
But once you realize your energy is in a certain area and you want to shift, how does a person begin to make that shift?
First step is acceptance. You have to accept, I feel. What were you feeling the other day? What was it that you said?
Well, he was feeling very angry and anxious about. He's a first responder, front line, right? And he's doing a lot of work, a lot of overtime, etc. And so feeling very anxious about not only the call, they call them the calls, right, when they run from the station, a lot of the calls that they're running, but then also the guys that he's living with as well. So there's just a lot of anxiety around how people are living their lives, what they bring to work with them, the people that they're servicing in the public, and just all of it. So whenever he comes home from work and I have it on the news, he's like, "Can you please get that off? I'm tired of hearing it. It's like too much for him." So he's feeling very angry and very anxious.
So, like I said, the first step to dealing with any emotion and trying to get out of that mindset into a more positive, optimistic mindset, even content mindset, is acceptance. You have to accept how you feel. You can't go from I'm angry and I want to be happy. That's just not going to happen. But if you are angry and you say, I'm really feeling angry right now, explore that. What's the why? Why am I feeling angry? That's my trigger. It's really, really helpful to know what are your triggers with different emotions. Do you know what your trigger is for being happy? Do you even know what makes you happy? What things do you do bring feelings of happiness and joy? So it's knowing those things. It's getting comfortable with all of your feelings, because then you know. And okay, why are these being triggered? And then what do I know from history tends to bring me joy or happiness? I actually have a lot of my clients each week, they do fact and feelings. They write down what is the feeling that I have, and then what's the facts behind it. Because so many people feel like their feelings just come from out of nowhere and they don't know why they feel that way. And that's just typically not what happens. There's a fact behind every feeling. It's just getting comfortable and accepting that fact.
Why is that so hard for people, do you think? Why is it so hard to, it's almost like there's a disconnect. So in the physiological world, right, in the physical world, which I live in a lot, right, with wellness and fitness, we always talked about the mind-body connection.
Yeah.
And, even, when the whole conversation started, I was like, well, how can people be disconnected from their body? Like, I didn't get the fact that people were really that disconnected, right? So you stub your toe during the day, and then you end up at the end of the night saying, okay, why does my foot hurt? Because you never paid attention to the fact that you stepped off that curb wrong running to that meeting, right? So there's a disconnection. But why do you think that's so challenging for people?
Well, I think when it comes to certain feelings like anger or resentment, I've heard a lot of resentment in this time with people, with others who maybe they feel like aren't taking this seriously, or with their spouse. Like resentment has been building up. I think it goes back to when we are children, feelings are not really. It's just now being touched in schools, and I truly think it goes back to we have in our heads what are good feelings and what are bad feelings, and we keep them completely separate, and that's why we try to avoid whatever we think is a bad or a negative feeling. If something doesn't bring us happiness or joy, we typically say, I'm not feeling well. Or how many times do you get asked and you're like, I feel okay. What is okay? Okay is not great. Okay is not good. But you really don't want to dive into why. And because that has been socially viewed as negative. How would we respond if someone said, you know what, I'm feeling really angry? You'd be like, whoa, why? Like, because we're just not used to it. And that goes back to just socially how our country and how the world deals with the expression of feelings that they deem negative. The only thing to get past that is for you to learn to accept your feelings. And when you accept them, the people around you will hopefully start doing that as well. And it won't be a question of why do you feel that way? It'll be how can I help you?
That's really powerful. I mean, I think that you've hit on something really powerful. I know when I coached and trained a lot, there were a lot of women that I worked with, especially young women that had issues around eating disorders.
Yes.
And that's a perfect scenario for it, right? I'm fine. I'm good. I'm okay.
Yeah.
But that's not telling me anything. You're not telling me that you ate lunch and you ate breakfast, but then you threw it up later. And that's in consequence because of what you're dealing with. So the same thing with this, because people are losing their jobs at rapid speed. They're hearing of people dying in rapid speed, right? They don't know about the stimulus and what the government is planning to do. They don't know if their job is going to be there in May or not. That's causing a major shift. And so all of a sudden, it's like, I don't really know how to deal with this. But if I really tell you how I'm really feeling, then what are you going to think of me? So I think there's a lot of that interplay going on, don't you?
Yeah, it's definitely, that's 100% going on because of what I stated earlier. And one of the key things that I've been seeing with many, if not most, all of my clients is this productivity issue, like stemming and causing anxiety. I feel like I'm not being productive. I'm seeing on social media we should be exploring my passion and figuring out my passion and all of these things. And it's like, this is a time truly of grief. We are grieving. We are grieving what we knew. We are grieving jobs. We are grieving people. We're grieving trips and marriages and birthdays and celebration. We're grieving all of those things. And I think one of the key things that I've been stressing to myself and my friends and my clients is whatever makes you feel accomplished at the end of the day. That's it. If that's a 20-minute walk and maybe you read 10 pages of your favorite book, that's enough right now. This is a time of grief, and I don't think that this idea of we should be productive and all these things, I just feel like this is a huge time of grief, and that mindset of productivity is just causing more anxiety for people and resources.
I think what you're saying is amazing because there has been no space for that, right?
Yeah.
We stopped life as we knew it. We're trying to get our head around what's life like right now, and we're supposed to shift back to normal. And what I've been telling a lot of our clients, especially with where we run, major programs in some of these companies, that that's not going to be a normal. I mean, that what you think you're going to shift back to is not normal. Because first of all, people are going to be very curious and, how is he taking care of himself? Did he wash his hands? I'm coming into this meeting. I don't want to shake his hand. What is she coughing for? Why is she sneezing? Why isn't so-and-so here? She wasn't here for 3 days. Now she's back. Is she sick or is she not? So the normal that we knew without the anxiety, that's so gone. I was listening to a commentary this morning before we jumped on the call, and it was by Harry Smith. I don't know if you guys know him. He's a commentator with NBC, and he was talking about the fact that so many things we miss, to your point, Kayla, that no one's allowing us the grief to talk about what we're missing. It's like everyone wants to force us into this positive being of just getting back, but I miss being able to see my favorite barista. I miss being able to see my favorite shopkeeper at the boutique I like to go to, usually when I get my spring shoes, and I haven't been able to get my spring shoes. I miss the fact that I can't go and visit my mom on the weekend, and I'm worried if she's even eating, and eating right. So we're not getting a chance to do that because we're so busy trying to shift into some sort of normal.
Yeah, this is a time of grief. I think it's wonderful if people can channel that and use that for creativity, because from being uncomfortable comes change. I truly believe that. But I think in general that we should be putting our efforts and feelings and just trying to get okay with being. We don't have to be super productive during this time. We can be grieving. I personally have been grieving. I have so many things I thought I would be doing this time of year that I'm not, and I feel sad because of that. And I've been literally, I have my calendar right here, and I consider myself like a busybody. And this week, what I had on my to-do list was go for a 1 hour walk and do a face mask at nighttime, because that takes up a lot of my energy. These things that used to just be a part of my routine are really big things for me now. And those are just the two things that I want to do for me, because I don't have the mental energy to do anything else outside of my job. And I think it's just getting people to accept that if you go for a 20-minute walk, that's great, because that's what matters. Just doing something that makes you feel accomplished is what we should put our focus on.
So I can't believe we're almost at time. I knew this was going to happen because, I love it when we get together and we get a chance to talk, and I love the way in which you approach this. One of the things that really resonated with me about what you just said is that as an expert, you are an expert in the field. You are saying it's okay to grieve. It's okay not to feel great. And it's okay to find something creative to do that's not the task at hand of work. And no one, taking, the bullhorn right now is saying that at all. Just like no one's really talking about self-care. So what I want to tell our listeners is this is not the only. We will be having a continued conversation. We're definitely going to invite, I call you Dr. Kayla. I'm going to call you Dr. Kayla. I'm going to invite Dr. Kayla back. I want to continue this conversation because one of the things she didn't get a chance to get to is more tools. I think that creativity is a huge tool. And in fact, I asked our team recently to do some research around, what are 25 creative tools that people can be doing right now to just dispel some of that mental energy. I know you have a list, Dr. Kayla, so I'm going to ask you to come back and share that perhaps May when we do our bi-weekly. So I just want to give some takeaways that you mentioned. If there's anything you want to add to this before we wrap, please let us know. But the first thing she said is name the anxiety. Yeah. Second thing she said is face the anxiety. Third, breathe out the anxiety, and that's, using the mind wheel, which we'll have published and sent out to everybody, so you'll be able to have that as a tool. Grade the anxiety, which I thought was a fantastic piece, and then finally discharge the anxiety. And then finally, you talk about aware, which I may have cut you short, so you didn't get a chance to say that. So you want to explain that acronym AWARE that you talk about?
Yeah, so one of the quick tools that I share and try to share with everybody that I know is a lot of times in the moment when we start to feel anxious, even worry, whatever it is that we start to feel overwhelmed by, I actually do this myself. I keep a thing in my phone, but some people like to handwrite and write it down, like on a Post-it note or whatever. Accept that you're feeling anxious. And I'm a visual person. I need to see things, and that helps ground me. Accept that I'm feeling however it is and name it. And I try to always pick 3 things that I'm feeling, because very rarely are we feeling just one feeling. Then we grade it. Go through and put a grade on how you're feeling. From an A, I'm feeling great, to an F, I'm feeling really poor right now. Being able to grade it and name it takes power away. You're then saying, I can control you, you don't control me. I know how to go from an F to an A. And then breathing. The one key to breathing is breathe in 7 times, in for 7 seconds, out for 11 seconds. That will just help regulate your breathing, get you in a place where you feel more calm. Repeat each step if necessary. And then E, expect for the best. Teach yourself to expect the best case scenario. Myself and many people, we always think worst case scenario, worst case scenario. Try to expect the best. What's the best that happens? That you'll feel better in the moment. So just go through those steps. A, accept it. W, watch and grade it. A, act normal and just breathe. R, repeat the steps if you need to. And E, expect the best.
I love it. I love it. Thank you, Dr. K. I love it. That was fantastic. So please remember, we will be having a continuation on this conversation on, really fighting the anxiety and the sadness and getting through this pandemic. As they all say, we've got to get through this together. So I think the words that you shared today, Kayla, are just absolutely powerful and are amazing and exactly what we need to hear. So always remember, mind yourself and your life will be sweet.
Yes.
Next time. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.